I'm not doing that.
Don't, you said stop, bro. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Daunte Wright started resisting arrest right when he was trying to put handcuffs on him and then dove back into his vehicle. Now at that point, you're leaving it up to the police officer's judgment on what happens next. So it's a tragedy anytime somebody loses their life. But I think a big question that we need to ask as humans is, what were the events leading up to that situation that caused it? So of course the media has been pushing their narrative on everybody and saying a black man was shot. Technically it's true, but you're missing a lot of the details there. The reason why Daunte Wright was pulled over was because he had expired plates. Very good reason to pull somebody over. I'm sure many of you watching this have been pulled over for that before. But of course you have these news companies saying he was pulled over for expired plates, but maybe the real crime was being a black man driving a car. That's the crap that is causing all of the riots in the streets. Of course you leave out the biggest detail. He had a warrant for his arrest that they found out while they were pulling him over. Guess what it was for? Having a firearm without a license and also fleeing police when they were trying to arrest him before. Let's say one of these news companies who wrote this article about being black was the real crime here. You, whoever wrote that, let's say you were the cop. I know it's hard to imagine for somebody like you, but just try to. Let's say you pull this guy over and you know that he has been known to carry a firearm without a license and he's also fleed police. Would you be on guard? Maybe a little bit? I mean, if you care about your life, obviously, you'd be a little bit on guard. That's fine. They didn't pull their guns out when they walked up to the car. They were very nice to him. They were talking to him. The male police officer tried to handcuff him, and that's when it went wrong. Cops are humans too. Cops make mistakes, but you are more likely to have them make a mistake if you are resisting arrest, which is exactly what this man did. Okay, now this is where this whole thing gets hairy. The cop who ended up shooting Daunte Wright supposedly misplaced her taser for her gun.
During this encounter, however, the officer drew their handgun instead of their taser. This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge.
Now I'm going to go into a deep demonstration on this to explain why something like that can happen. But before I get into that, I want to explain to everybody something. There is no such thing as an accidental discharge. Actually, there is one way an accidental discharge can happen. Okay. In my hand, I have a good old 6-shooter 357 mag. Okay? The only definition of an accidental discharge is if I'm just holding this gun, don't have my finger on the trigger, nothing, and randomly it just goes off, right? Shoots right into my wall. To me, that's still not even an accidental discharge. That's an act of God, because that just doesn't happen. The point I'm trying to make is you either fire a weapon or you negligently fire it. Negligent discharge. There is no accidental discharge unless God is involved, period. And some of you may be like, oh no, it was an accident. Well, then you don't understand how weapons work. So let me demonstrate what happened here. Okay, so what you're seeing here is a battle belt. This is not a similar one that police use, but I can demonstrate with it, okay? Now, me being a trained person in terms of knowing exactly what is on this belt, I don't have to look. I know where everything is, okay? I can name them off right now. I got 2 tourniquets in the back. I got a med pouch in between them. I got an AR mag right here. I have 2 Glock mags right here. I have my Glock right here. I have a flashlight right here. And I have a knife right here. Now, police officers don't usually carry all this stuff. They usually have a radio, they have a cuff holder back here, and they usually have a taser, okay? What they train in most police departments, as far as I know, is that your firearm goes on the side where you are dominant. So if you are right arm dominant, it goes on your right side. Your taser, therefore, goes on your non-dominant side. So the taser would be sitting pretty much where my Glock mags are right now. If somebody is not trained to the point where they can be blindfolded and know how to pick shit out of their belt, crap like this is going to happen. Now let me ask you, how do you get better training at something? You either go somewhere and pay for it, or the company that you work for gets an expert and they pay for it. How are they going to do that when they defund the police? In my opinion, this whole situation is a consequence, a direct consequence of defunding the police. If they had that extra $15 million or however much Minneapolis was defunded by, maybe they could have hired some extra training a week before this happened so that this person maybe had that little extra training so they wouldn't confuse their firearm for a taser. If it was my son who got shot in that situation, yeah, I would be pissed. The only reason why I would be pissed is because he resisted arrest. He left everything up to chance. Anybody who has never been in the heat of the moment where you have to decide which way you're gonna go, you can't judge this. You just can't. I don't care if you're an attorney. You can't judge it. Who knows what was going on? But once again, you leave that up to chance once you make a situation like that as a civilian when you don't respect law enforcement and you resist arrest. So for all we know, she could have just not been thinking, pulled out her firearm and thought it was a taser. I mean, that's realistically a possibility when it becomes a situation of life or death. America's need to not listen to law enforcement, their need to resist arrest, their need to break the law and not be accountable for it is a total joke. And until people start realizing that police are a fundamental aspect of our society, and that if you defund the police, they're not going to get the training they need. They're not. And yes, a police officer can go and get personal training like I have done, but it's not required. It's kind of like somebody in sales. They can learn everything at work and listen to the trainer and all that stuff, and they have the decision whether they want to go home and read a whole bunch of books about sales or just think that what they learn at work is okay. Most of the time it is, but sometimes it's not.